Open up! It's time for the pill!
Barnacles, I hate the pill.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Mission Yozakura Family, Chapter 203, Taiyo's Escape. We go back to the more slice-of-life comedy flow of things this chapter, though that's not to say we don't get anything important. We've done a little time jump forward since last chapter. All the Yozakuras have returned to Taiyo Academy with Dr. Mozu in hand. We begin from the perspective as the twins as they remember the promise Taiyo made to them before the wedding all the way back in chapter 197. That if they're able to save Shinzo, that Taiyo and possibly Shinzo will give them stamps on their card. So they go to Taiyo's room in order to ask him about it. However, when they get there, they see Taiyo lying on the sofa looking a bit under the weather. The twins both immediately become worried and Alpha checks his temperature using the Alpha watch in order to see if he has a fever or not. However, he assures them that he's alright, saying that it's only kickback from when he used his true spring blooming, which Hifumi affectionately refers to as Ghost Papa. Which again, endearing, but I'm glad they're not the ones picking names for everything. We then get an expansion on the flashback of when Taiyo was watching the tapes Momo had left behind for him, as he further explains the limits and repercussions of Taiyo using his true spring blooming. Momo explains that the side effects of using it, I assume both the duration and the exact effects of it, differ depending on the person's ability and their blooming, but advises Taiyo to only use his for about 3 minutes max lest he risk any serious injury to himself. But it seems that as Taiyo was daydreaming, the twins went off to find medicine for him, and as fate would have it, it seems they took advice from Kyoichiro of all people, who gave them this giant evil needle from hell called the Blood Splatter Blossom, which oddly enough apparently isn't something that he just made up out of nowhere, as it's apparently a traditional medicine in the Yozakura family. And later in the chapter we do get confirmation that the other siblings have had their own experiences with this Blood Splatter Blossom. But Taiyo clearly isn't in need of this, so Kyo is obviously just trying to fuck with him, but I didn't need to tell you that, I know. And as the twins explain just how excruciating and horrifying that the pain from the needle is gonna be, Taiyo gets the fuck out of there and the twins go running off after him. We also see Kyoichiro here behind a wall smirking, and it's from here on out that a little game starts throughout the chapter where he's hidden in the background of some panels and you can like find him and whatnot. Which I don't know, I think that's cute, I think that's funny. Taiyo has gone to hide in the lab where Nanao is currently interrogating Dr. Mozu. Nanao recalls his own experience with the Blood Splatter Blossom, telling Taiyo that all of his exhaustion was gone, but so was his memories due to the amount of pain he went through. Which of course just makes Taiyo all the more worried. He asks Nanao to cover him, which he agrees to, but also lets him know that he's going to be leaving after he's done interrogating Mozu anyway. Which, speaking of, she's boasting about how tight-lipped she is and how good she is in keeping secrets, even though last chapter we just saw a flashback of when Ryu cornered her and she immediately was just like, "Hey buddy, I can bring your dead boyfriend back to life, please don't kick the shit out of me." So to get her to talk, Nanao starts tickling her feet with a feather. So I'm sure this chapter will be popular with a certain crowd. Nanao apparently injected her with a substance called 7 sensitivities, which increased her sensitivity to physical sensations by a factor of 7,000. And I need to get some of that. Man, imagine like taking that and eating a bag of Doritos or like a really good steak or something. Oh, I'd die and go to heaven. But Nanao designed this specifically for Mozu due to the fact that she's apparently unable to feel pain. And as Mozu talks confidently, saying a stupid trick like that isn't going to be enough to get her to talk, Nanao fucking Nico Robins like 100 hands holding feathers around his body, and just starts actually torturing Mozu. We see Taiyo observing this torture session in horror, as Alpha and Hifumi lurk behind him, also looking on in horror. There's a brief comedic pause before the chase begins again, and Alpha and Hifumi are not holding back. Alpha's firing lasers, Hifumi is throwing her yo-yo around wildly. They are out for blood. But before we leave Nanao and Mozu entirely, we see that Nanao is shrunk back down to his normal size and removed the bucket from his head in order to talk to Mozu face to face. As he's come to the conclusion that Mozu let herself be captured on purpose in order to get something out of this situation. Saying he can even go as far as to guess what that is due to the fact that they can both think like mad scientists. Though of course we don't actually get to hear him say what that might be in this chapter. We move on to another room in the academy where Taiyo has run into Shinzo and Ayaka, as Shinzo tries to convince Taiyo to just get the jab and get it over with. Recounting one time he had it when he was little and he was only unconscious for like 3 days, so like what's the big deal, you know? Ayaka offers instead to do acupuncture on Taiyo, which he seems just as unenthused about, before he turns back to Shinzo to move the conversation over to Ryu. But Shinzo's already on top of all that as he tells Taiyo that Ryu has apparently been after Asa for longer than the Yozakura family has been aware of him. Or at least he was after the man behind Takemi's death, and during that search is when he came across Asa. Regardless, both Katana and Shinzo come to the agreement that Ryu definitely had some sort of ulterior motive or good reason for joining Asa the way he did. Shinzo then affectionately places his hands on Taiyo's shoulder and tells him not to worry and they'll find Ryu when they go to find Asa. And everything seems nice and wholesome for a moment until Taiyo realizes that Shinzo has an iron grip on him and is refusing to let go. That's when the twins appear yet again and reveal that they've blackmailed both Shinzo and Ayaka with snowman soufflés, which I can't even blame them. That sounds fucking delicious. Hell, I want to try and make that. But Taiyo breaks free and sprints off, leaving the twins running after him yet again. And also yet again, we see Kyoichiro peeking around the corner watching this show play out. But we also see Alpha glaring back at him, showing that he's more aware of Kyo's shenanigans than he first let on. As the twins sprint onwards, they hear Kango and Shion call out to them as they've tackled Taiyo and have got him completely locked in place. But when Taiyo asks if they've been bribed too, they don't even know what he's talking about, and they say they just wanted to join in on the fun. Classic Kengo Shion shenanigans here. That's when Taiyo launches them off, yet again, resuming the chase. Here we see Futaba watching this whole spectacle play out as she's sitting at a table with Ai, Shura, and Goliath, who, the three of them are all playing Super Smash Bros. On their Nintendo Switches.
Happy feet! Wombo combo! That ain't Falco! That ain't Falco! Oh!
And after this, we see that the twins have completely cornered Taiyo. And from the shadows emerges an overly confident and cocky Kyoichiro, calling him a failure of a father for rejecting his kid's wishes. It's also here where we get sort of the answer sheet for all the spot the Kyoichiros throughout the chapter. So good job if you saw those, I guess. I didn't even realize that little game was happening the first time I read this because I'm a bad reader, so. But Kyoichiro completely restrains Taiyo with his steel spider as he encourages the twins to give him the shot. But before they do, Alpha winks at Taiyo, confirming that they know Kyoichiro is up to some bullshit, and sort of trying to reassure their father, but I don't know if it really worked or sort of made things worse in the situation, to be honest. But the twins charge forward, and right as it looks like the needle is about to pierce Taiyo, they flip it the other direction and send it hurling towards Kyoichiro, nailing him right in the belly button, it seems. Jesus, that's gotta hurt. The twins say they were just waiting for Kyoichiro to make his appearance so they could teach him a lesson for trying to get them to mess with Taiyo. And then Kyoichiro has a heart attack and dies. After this, Taiyo is freed and he and Shinzo reward the twins with their stamps on their stamp card. Meaning the only ones they have left to get are Futaba's and Mutsumi's. Hifumi fantasizes about when they'll be able to fight together side by side, picturing Alpha as a damsel in distress, as he looks very uncomfortable standing next to her. They decide that next they'll go after Futaba's stamp, saving Mutsumi's for last. However, Futaba doesn't really seem to show any interest in giving it to them right now. Probably given the fact they're dealing with this whole Asa situation right now. Speaking of, Kyoichiro, who has returned to the world of the living, asks Nana if Mozu ended up giving up any information, which she didn't. However, he did find a piece of plant matter that he was able to trace back to one specific lab of hers. He hyposits that it's most likely a trap, but he says there's just as likely a possibility that they find clues about Asa there, so they should probably look into it. Kyoichiro agrees, saying that they should put together a search team, but turns to the twins and tells them that they'll have to stay at the academy since they haven't completed their stamp cards yet. Which completely shocks Hifumi, but not Alpha, who's less, delusional, you know? Like I said, nothing too monumental, but this chapter is definitely just a transition before we start really getting into the absolute chaos I'm sure is about to unfold here soon. I'm really curious as to how the twins are going to get Futaba's stamp, like what her conditions are going to be. I'm sure they're going to end up worming their way into this Mozu lab excursion one way or another. So maybe that could be it, but I don't know, that feels really obvious, I guess. I wonder who the expedition team is going to be, too. I mean, I'm sure Kyoichiro and Nana are kind of obvious. Taiyo is probably going to go, too, along with Shinzo. Maybe Shion to help with infiltration and whatnot. I mean, hell, for all I know, the entire fucking family's going to go. I hope we get to see some interesting battles at the lab. I'm sure it won't be completely abandoned, or at the very least they'll encounter someone while they're there. I'd like it to be one of Asa's kids, but I don't know, that might be wishful thinking on my part. But that's going to be it from me, everybody. Let me know what you thought about this chapter down in the comments below. Be sure to like the video and subscribe for more professional medical advice. I hope you have a lovely day. Bye. It's supposed to be like the needle, like it's coming at you, you know? I got like the face there. It's a stretch, I know.